Hey, this is Overpass Insights. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today I want to talk about putting the right spin on your CV to get a developer job. Alright, so last week I got an email from somebody asking me for career advice. Now, I don't always respond to emails as quickly as I'd like to, but this was one where I thought the question was really good, and I responded right away. And we were like exchanging a few different emails, and I said, actually, do you mind if I talk about this on the video? Do you mind if I talk about this Overpass Insights? And he said, yeah, okay, but if you could keep it anonymous, I don't want my boss to find out about it. So I'm gonna go through the gist of the email. I'm gonna change a few things a little bit, but I'm gonna keep the same overall structure of it so that I can share it with you. So basically, he sent me an email saying, can you answer some advice on career change question? He's been a developer since longer than I have, so he's been a developer for a long time. He's worked on a lot of older technologies like VB and old databases like Oracle and Informix and stuff like that. And he's in his 50s. And he says, however, my current job is rubbish. It's essentially a stressful job doing very little development, and he's keen to get out of it as soon as he can. So he's released a Swift application. So he's been learning Swift and doing iOS development, and he's released his first Swift application, and he's working on his second one. He says, the complication here is that I'm not really junior programmer material, but I recognize that I don't have tons of iOS dev experience. Plus, I can't live on a tiny salary of a junior programmer as I have a mortgage to pay and so on. Any advice how to proceed on breaking into the UK iOS job / freelance market without going bankrupt in the process? And then, so he goes on to that. And that was really good. What got me on this was what he sees as a liability, being an older developer learning a new technology, I see as being an asset. And it's all about the spin that you put on it. So my response to him was, dude, you worked on these older technologies and you know the new technology. Now you might not have worked on the newer technologies as long as some of the younger developers have, but you have this vast experience behind you, and you need to put that to your advantage. So there are a lot of companies out there that use older technologies and they have not been able to migrate forward, and you're that bridge between it. I know the iOS side of things and I know the old technology, so I can help build the new front end to that and be able to work on both sides of it because he has that level of experience. And it's the spin that you put on it. And I told him how we've got a few projects at the moment where the back end is, so we got an API that we're building on some old server infrastructure. So it's not PHP, it's not Node, it's not IIS, it's just older server architecture. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but one of the things that the junior developers that I'm working with is they don't know that. They keep asking for things that we just can't give them. They keep asking for token authentication and other types of stuff. It's like, nope, we're not getting that. We can give you JSON and that's about it, right? So it's knowing how that works. And as an older developer myself, I could bridge both those sides. And even last week I talked about how writing a store procedure for them because they weren't up to date with the store procedures, but at the same time they know the young stuff, the newer stuff. So they're much better at MongoDB than I am. They're much better at the new kind of stuff because it is. But it's all about the spin. And when I go into a job interview, that's what I do. So my first advice to him was, don't look for another job. Don't leave your job. Just start looking in the evenings. Just go through and start looking at the job board, start looking at contracting, because freelancing, you can do freelancing through Upwork, but I've never really seen that to be very profitable, and it's not very stable. At least it doesn't look like it to me. But if you can get like a contract, like a 3-6 month contract, and just work someplace on site and just get that experience up, then at least you have something there to go to, and don't quit your job until you actually land one of those things. And the spin I would put on it is, okay, I'm an older developer, but I'm also a lot more methodical. The younger developers, they might not do very much with error handling. They're very sloppy with how much memory they use, but I come from an age where we use a lot less memory, or whatever it is. And on the other side of it, if I was a young developer going in, I would say, sure, you can hire that older guy. You can hire that older guy, but I'm a young developer. I grew up with mobile, right? I don't have the same hang-ups and the baggage they have. So whatever it is, you can spin it, right? And I've been doing this my whole career, especially when I go in for a job. But you go in there, and I would talk about my investment banking experience and I would try to think about the positives of it. So I could go in there. I remember going into a contract at the BBC, and I didn't have any experience with media or anything, but I went in there and I talked about the investment banking, and I said, well, investment banking is not anything like what you guys are doing here. It's completely different topics, but the technology is very similar. And if there's one thing I learned from the investment banking environment is that if we have to be very methodical. If you make a mistake, money could be lost. I mean, you have to double check, and you have to be very, very thorough with things, which sounded really, really good. It wasn't necessarily relevant, but it sounded really good in the interview because it was a spin that I put on it, right? If you ever hear an estate agent, so at the moment I'm looking for a flat, I'm looking for an apartment, so I'm going through and looking at lots of different places, and estate agents and lettings agents, they put the positive spins on things. So if you go into an apartment and you say, this seems very small, they'll say, it is cozy, but the upside is you don't have to clean as much. It's very easy. It's easier to maintain. Or if you say, the garden is too big because I don't want to have to take care of a big garden, then they'll say, yes, but think of how much extra space you'll have and how good it feels, whatever. So they're always trying to put a positive spin on it, and they could take anything bad and put a positive spin on it. Now, and a couple years ago, I read this book by Frederick Eklund called The Cell, and I've seen him in interviews where he talks about the same thing, putting a positive spin on things. And it's difficult for us as software developers. It's difficult for me with Overpass when I talk with clients. It's difficult for me to talk about how great we are, even though I'm in a selling situation. Like, it's easier if I have somebody there to hype me up a little bit to go into it. I don't know why that is. Actually, I know why that is. You know why that is? Is because if you've ever worked with a software developer who's always talking about how great they are, or they always talk about how good they are with this technology, and I know that one really well. Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with my code. There's no bugs in my code. I'm probably the best. I'm probably the best at C# there is. If you've ever worked with a guy like that, and I've worked on with a few guys like that, we have a word for them. Assholes. And they're assholes. Nobody wants to work with somebody who's always talking about how great they are. So none of us want to do that. And we get into the interview situation, or when we're doing our CVs, we start to hold back because we're modest and we don't want to talk about how great we are, but it's all about the spin. Now notice, I'm not talking about lying on your CV, and I'm not talking about skills you don't have. I'm saying look at the positives of it. And sometimes you need somebody else there to hype you up and to talk about what is really good about it when you're doing that CV. How about what are the positives on this? And I think you can take most things and put a positive spin on it. Whether it gave you more character, getting fired from that job gave me more character. I got to see what I was doing, or I stood up for what I believed in, or whatever. I stood in that job for too long because I'm loyal and I'm dedicated, or whatever. There's always a positive spin to it, and you should identify that before you do the CV and before you go into the interview. And I think being an older developer working with a new technology, I think there's a lot of ways you can spin that to be it is very positive. I mean, it's an asset he was ignoring. And also, if you're very young going into something, that's a positive too. So it's all about how you sell it. Let me know if you disagree with me. This is the kind of thing, I guess I feel a bit passionate about it. I guess I'm misinterviewing a little bit. So let me know what you guys think. How do you guys do in interviews? Do you think I'm just talking out my butt? Which, wouldn't be the first time. Anyway, that is it for today. I will talk to you guys again tomorrow. Hey, this is Overpass Insights. My name is Eric, and I make apps. Now today, I want to talk about putting the right spin on your CV to get it